Sunday Club. It's a delight to be back with you all on what has been a rather uh, active week, actually. That's the best way to describe it. There's been a lot going on. There's been some serious bad news from Lakhimpur Kheri as well as Srinagar, Kashmir, and very unfortunate events that require serious contemplation, and we have done a few shows on that through the week. However, this Sunday, I thought it's better to kind of venture into the future and discuss something that might possibly be in the offing. And what we're looking at really going forward is the fight for the principal opposition space in national politics. This week, we saw really the gloves come off. We saw the Congress and the TMC go at it, none less than the Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, Bhupesh Singh Baghel, had a comment to make that was a sort of a sly on political strategist Prashant Kishore, who was to join the Congress but isn't now. And then you had the Goa minister who quit the Congress, Eduardo Falero, who supposedly quit it at the behest of Prashant Kishore. Now, that begs the question that if Mr. Kishore is about to join the Congress, then why is he stealing away senior leaders from the party and moving them on to the TMC? The TMC, of course, had Abhijit Banerjee, I guess the heir apparent, Mamata Banerjee's nephew, really challenged the Congress even the week before last, saying that, they are indulging in armchair politics and Twitter is not how you do politics, assuming or appropriating the fact that TMC is far more on the ground than the Congress is. And as they chip away at senior Congress party members, Sushmita Dev has joined them, which will impact their fortunes, hopefully for them. That's what they think, in Tripura, in Assam, as well as West Bengal. So they're making a very concentrated effort towards picking up this national opposition, principal opposition space, and seem to have quite a few cheerleaders in the media as well, who are, of course, very disappointed with the Congress and the fact that we're on year 7 and the Congress has yet to get its mojo back. Of course, Priyanka Gandhi has been in the news. She was seen sweeping. She was reciting the Durga Strot on stage. So she's definitely making some noise. I'm not sure how politically relevant that'll be, but certainly it will energize the Congress cadre, whatever is left of it, frankly. And of course, as always, there are some murmurings of rebellion in Rajasthan as well as Chhattisgarh. And of course, we know what happened in Punjab. I'm joined today by a new guest on the Sunday Club, Sandip Ghose. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's a delight to finally have you on the show.
Thank you, Advaita. My pleasure.
And of course, Professor Prof Sengupta is returning with us this evening. He's a TMC supporter, I think, and really values their prospects coming in, upcoming prospects in national politics. So, Sandeep, you just tweeted something really interesting this week, a few minutes ago, I would say, about Priyanka Gandhi Vadra on stage in Varanasi, reciting the Durga Strot. And the last time we saw someone do that was Mamata Banerjee. So, what do you think is going on? What kind of posturing are we looking at?
Oh, well, about the Congress, less said the better, because they try all kinds of formula from time to time. As you know, Rahul Gandhi went on his temple tourism before Gujarat, and after that, and when they talked about the Janayudhari Brahmin and Shiv Bhakt, etc. So they try to adopt various avatars, so to speak, thinking what will be the flavor of this season. Mamata Banerjee's stuff, which was happening in Bengal, that had a very specific context because she was being, painted by BJP as being anti-Hindu, and so she had to reclaim her position on that. So that was there. But how it goes forward, I think these are peripheral issues that will only, pan out in a period of time. So today, Priyanka Gandhi's Durga Shrotam, etc., I suppose, is more in the context of the UP elections, and especially because she was in Varanasi and where it's the PM's constituency, so she had to kind of assert her Hindu roots, etc. But what you talked about, the larger game plan of TMC, and most importantly, Mr. Kishore, who I call as an enigma wrapped in a riddle, or whichever way you want to see it, one has really not figured out uh, who is Mr. Kishore and what is he really? Because, the classic instance when Nitish Kumar at one point in time revealed, or at least stated, that he had taken Prashant Kishore on his side only because Amit Shah asked him to. Otherwise, he was not going to, and that's the time when Nitish Kumar was actually fighting against the BJP. He was not, at that point in time, he took him on. So it's very, very difficult to understand what's the role Mr. Kishore has. And so if something happens after 2024 or even after 2022, Mr. Kishore goes around, or somebody else says that we took him on only because Mr. Amit Shah recommended, one wouldn't be surprised. And so exactly what is the game he plays? He was Amrinder Singh's advisor, and from there he withdrew. Amrinder Singh had given him a certain stature in Punjab, given him an office and paraphernalia. And then he started talking to Congress, and now we see him, not talking to Congress, yet somebody whom I value and respect a lot in terms of what happens inside Congress, Rashid Kedwai. He wrote a piece yesterday saying that it has just been put on hold, and it's not that it is ruled out about Kishore joining Congress. And there seems to be some, difference of opinion between the three Gandhis. While Rahul Gandhi would like him to join right away, Priyanka and Sonia would rather wait till the UP elections. So exactly what's the game he is playing? I think that's most critical to my mind than what Congress is posturing, or Mamata Banerjee or Abhishek is talking about in either in social media or in public. I think we'll get Dipankar's views in, and then I will come in with some more thoughts.
Advaita, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
I don't know why they keep muting me. I don't know what do you think is really going on with Prashant Kishore? Mr. Falero from Goa clearly or it slipped out of his mouth that Prashant Kishore had kind of suggested he move to the TMC. Now, on the other hand, there have been this wild speculation about how he's moving into the Congress, and then he, at a very convenient time, distances himself from Captain Amrinder Singh, where he, in the Punjab government, he held a cabinet level position. The timing is interesting because it indicates that he may have known what was coming for Captain. So obviously he has some high level contacts which give him the correct information at the right time. So we can say that he is in the mix as far as the Congress is concerned, and yet he seems to be kind of nudging leaders across to the TMC.
Is that for me?
Yes.
Okay. You see, Prashant Kishore is a very ambitious person who wants to be influential. I think his Congress movement has long flown. It flew away a few years ago. He had certain plans for the Congress, a strategy for the Congress, and 4 or 5 years ago, when he was really close to the Congress, just prior to the UP elections or thereabouts, my contacts in the Congress said, no, here's this particular game plan. This is going to work. And ultimately, that game plan was not adopted. He was extremely disappointed. And then after some time, he moved to the TMC. Now, look, what does he want to do? I think he wants to, from the TMC, to take over the Congress. I thought they would sequence it, but it seems to me that they are in a hurry. Why do I say so? Because you see, when Priyanka Gandhi went to Lakhimpur Kheri, there was no immediate need to tweet on that, saying, this one agenda is not going to revive the Congress. There was real overreading, but he did tweet. And there was no need for Bhupesh Baghel to come in and try to defend the family. Of course, I can understand his position, but there was really no need. And there was really no need for the TMC to respond so vitriolically to Bhupesh Baghel's tweet. Okay, but that's not all. Apart from the Twitter war, if you read The Wire, Harish Khare has a piece on 2G and G2. He starts with attacking the Gandhi siblings, etc., as to what they have done, etc., etc. And then as a gesture to convention, he also, he basically also concentrates on Modi and Shah, saying, the country cannot afford these people any longer. So this is also their contacts in the media starting to hedge their bets and starting to make a case that, look, if you want to get rid of the BJP, fight the BJP, then we have to do something about the 2Gs as well. Now, look, if you want to do something about the 2Gs to fight G2, Modi Shah, then obviously, I have no doubt he means that we have to basically gravitate to some other force. And if you've read many of these Vogue journalists, etc., they seem to be gravitating towards the TMC. Look, what the TMC has done and what it does, anything who is of use to them and renders them service, they do something substantial for them. For example, Yashwant Sinha was made vice president. Then a former bureaucrat, Jawahar Sarkar, who spewed quite a bit of vitriol on Modi government, has been given a Rajya Sabha ticket. So, in a sense, that way the TMC is far more savvy than the Congress. In a sense that people who seem to deliver or seem to do something for the party are given rewards. The Congress in this sense is completely paralyzed. And given the fact that Mamata seems to have followed Prashant Kishore's script, and that seems to have delivered, whether the script delivered or the mistakes of the BJP delivered, we can talk about later. So the wind right now, Prashant Kishore sees, and a lot of people see, is behind the backs of the TMC. Now, I would have thought they would have sequenced it at a more relaxed pace, going for the smaller units and then the larger units, etc. But this all-out war seems to suggest that Mamata Banerjee is in a hurry.
Interesting. She seems to be in a hurry, says Professor. Sandip, you track the media quite closely. There seems to be a shifting sands sort of situation going on where suddenly they seem to be, like Professor said, hedging their bets on the TMC. The ARP seems to have been abandoned, dropped. You remember ARP was in a similar position a couple of years ago, and that they have been dropped. And now it's all about the TMC and their spokespersons getting media space, much more than any other state state spokespersons would. There's a definite effort on there to get Mamata front and center.
Absolutely. I was about to say that media always look for these options. And therefore, Kejriwal was hyped up, as you said, as the answer to everyone before, and now Kejriwal not having delivered, they are coming back to Mamata. Okay, they see a hope in Mamata because they are desperately looking for options against Modi. And so when you also said about Priyanka Gandhi, enthusing the Congress cadre, and you rightly said you don't know how many of Congress cadre are left. So most of the time, it is not enthusing the Congress cadre; it is also enthusing certain people in the media who would like to see that as a Belchi moment, etc., and think that Congress is coming back. It's more of that, and that's why I think Modi and Amit Shah generally enjoy these kind of actions while they go ahead with their own agenda. But coming back to Mamata Banerjee and TMC, I think to their credit, whether it's Prashant Kishore or not, they are moving in a fairly systemic manner. They're moving the chess pieces in a planned manner. What will come out of it could be, subsequent. And there are two reasons for it, Advaita. First thing, I feel Mamata Banerjee is also supremely ambitious. and there's nothing wrong in it. Anybody who's in the business of politics has to be ambitious, and they have to really, aim for the highest post. So nothing wrong about it. And she probably thinks this is her moment. And
Hmm.
because Congress is weak, earlier by definition, a regional leader who was in the regional party to eliminate Congress. So that's what became the problem in 2019. Rahul Gandhi almost claimed that position, saying that, if there has to be an opposition leader, it's me, and what you call the alternative prime minister. Now, this is the moment Mamata Banerjee sees, I think, for her to steam ahead. And therefore, what Professor was talking about, the hurry, that's the hurry. Because really speaking, I wrote an article some time back, you may or may not have read it. If you really see the timing, it's a bit like the same time of what Modi did after 2012. To 2012 to 2014, was a really run-up period to the Prime Minister's battle. So Mamata Banerjee feels that, okay, I have got now Bengal under my belt, or whatever we want to call it, and it's there. And now she's also won her this minor distraction, which was the assembly seat. So she can leave Bengal to be managed by her local people and focus entirely on the national agenda. And in a national space, what they're doing, they're being very selective, and I think very intelligently so, and rightly so. So, first of all, is the Northeast, okay, where Congress has been almost diminished, if not demolished. And there's taking a Shushmita Dev and the likes, they're negotiating with somebody in Assam. They can try, and seeing the anti incumbency in Tripura, they can probably stitch up some kind of a presence in that area. And thereby, what is the biggest challenge? Everybody says, even today, which I think is foolish, to say Mamata Banerjee can at best get 42 seats, that's the West Bengal seats. Now she has to get out of that. And the only way she gets out of that is by these small pieces. And somebody else was saying the other day, sorry to digress, that's the biggest mistake Congress makes. Congress can actually, if they stitched up some of the smaller states, they could probably add to their number much more than wasting their resources and time and energy on, say, a state like UP, where despite Priyanka Gandhi's, recitation of Durga Srotam or whatever, one still doesn't see them becoming really gaining a huge traction over there. Instead, if they were to focus, let's say, on Goa or Manipur or smaller states, they could have probably done better. And here, Meghalaya is also about to slip out from the hand. So that's where Mamata Banerjee is working systematically. Secondly, there is obviously today a void in the what you would call the people who have the Congress DNA, but they don't really have a platform. And that's where there are two ways they can get it. Either they can get it through defection, which you've seen in Goa, where people move lock, stock, and barrel onto Trinamool. Otherwise, you also have parties like NCP, etc., which are originally has the Congress stock in them. That is where Prashant Kishore may play a role in getting them on board with Mamata to create that so-called non-BJP and semi-Congress kind of configuration. And they may leave areas which which are there, not really their stronghold. Like Punjab, I don't see Trinamool going and wasting ammunition there or resources there. UP also, they may not really go in a big way. They may, at a later stage, try to strike a deal with Akhilesh. And then comes the South. So again, like NCP, you may have YSR Congress coming on board, or they can negotiate with some of the regional parties already. Stalin seems to be favorably disposed towards her. And so there she or Prashant Kishore is trying to create that critical mass by which, just like, say, it happened in the case of Devegowda, for instance, even if one were to go towards 2024, they will force Congress to say that, okay, we want to come on board, but not necessarily as the leading partner. We will allow a Mamata to lead the opposition charge against BJP. And they create that, just like Modi created, if you recall, I'll just take a minute more. Uh, uh, what did he do? There was a lot of resistance within the BJP to accept him as a prime ministerial candidate, but he created the groundswell within the BJP by which all other options, Advani and everybody had to move away their nominees, everything, and Modi became the natural choice. So Mamta may be, Prashant Kishore may be trying to do that, make Mamta the automatic choice, or let Gandhis accept her as the choice and say that's the only way you can also preserve the Congress. And then Prashant Kishore at that point in time can play the whatever you call it, go between or something, to say that okay, this my job is to dislodge Modi and Shah, and this is the best way to do that. So that sort of a game plan could be at work. And
I know. I mean, it's fascinating, just how just how much planning goes into this big election and the realignments that we're going to see. I think Professor, you've tracked Mamta for a while. What kind of a personality is she? Is she somebody who is likable, someone who is a team player, who is, or can she be autocratic? Will she be okay with, reaching out to people, sort of, eating humble pie when she has to get her to the prime minister's race?
Look, Mamta is a mercurial personality. She evinces strong likes and dislikes. You cannot be indifferent to Mamata Banerjee. You either like her or you dislike her. And the other thing is that in Mamata's party, there is no doubt who's boss. If she trusts you, she will trust you totally. If she dislikes you, you're going to be marginalized. So that is the way it runs, but that's the way the Congress party has run. That's the way Mrs. Gandhi ran her party. So what Mamta is important, but then we've seen how this is how basically various Congresses have actually operated, except Narasimha Rao, who was probably different, etc. He had a weak card. He dealt with those weak cards quite well, and India was never the same thereafter. One thing, one point of disagreement with Sandip Ghose is the following. When it comes to what Mamata is doing, I think it's not the non-Congress opposition. She's basically trying to take over or bring together everybody who has the Congress DNA. No doubt about it. Now, how will she do it? If the NCP and Jagan were to give her their blessings, their support, I think we would be at a tipping point when it comes to quite a few Pradesh Congress committees, especially where there are dissensions, especially where there's nothing going on the ground. Right now, you cannot be prime minister unless you've got a lot of seats in the Hindi belt. Let's face this. Okay. Where is the Trinamool in the Hindi belt? Nowhere there. Right now, does it look like she's making an entry out there? No. On the other hand, if NCP comes over, Jagan comes over, then you start getting a momentum, and then who knows what will happen. Things may happen in Chhattisgarh. Things may happen in the smaller Hindi states. In G23, you have an Anand Sharma, etc., who has his pockets of influence in Himachal Pradesh. So if the smaller Hindi states start breaking in this sequence of events, then I think somewhere down the line, if the family is basically told, look, we will always put you on a pedestal, your interests will be taken care of, but let us face it, you cannot be the prime ministerial candidate because you don't have the stomach for it. It will not be told so in so many terms or publicly. It will be gently conveyed. I think these people will probably see the writing on the wall and come back. I can think of Mamata assigning a role to Priyanka. I can think of her assigning a role to Rahul also. But there will be no doubt that in that setup, if it comes about, it will be Mamta who will be the numero uno. There will be no number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. None at all. For appearances, There will be some people with her, but they will only be for appearances. They, she will have her advisors, she will have her cabal, she will act according to their advice, whatever that advice is, but she will be number one. And I think this is what they are trying for. It is not a non-Congress opposition as yet, it is basically a Congress opposition, anybody with the DNA. But yes, the support of people like Stalin, I think it would be extremely welcome. Because let us face it, without DMK support, those seats that the Congress has in Tamil Nadu will not be the Congress's. And I think if Stalin decides to support the TMC, if the TMC puts up those candidates, at this point in time, TMC will basically get those seats. So the support of certain regional strongmen who are well disposed to the Congress is extremely likely, is extremely important, particularly because the Congress no longer has the organizational strength to go into those states alone. In 2014, the Congress did. Each Congress MP candidate lost their deposit. Each one of them, they lost their deposit. In contrast, the BJP did better actually. They got actually one seat, the Kanyakumari seat. So I believe that when it comes to these states where the Congress is a marginal player, and right now there are quite a few of those, with Stalin's support will be crucial. But Stalin will also see, he also has a good antenna, he'll also be make out who has the momentum. And if the lady has the momentum, there's still some time. Modi made his move in 2013, 1 year before 2014. I think the big moves or the crescendo will come in 2023. She has started her moves now. The crescendo will come sometime in 2023. But whereas Modi had only a party to win over, yes, it is true. Advani did not want him, but the fact is, Advani's track record had been by that time quite diminished. In 2004 they had been, in 2009 they fared even worse.
Professor, let me bring in Sandip also at this point. Sandip, do you think it's likely that the Gandhis will just sort of hand over to Mamata, and she will assign them some position? I find that really hard to believe.
Gandhis may not hand over, and that's where I said, Prashant Kishore may play a role of negotiator, etc. If it comes to the survival of the Congress, and for that, even for a short while, sorry, again it went on mute. What I was saying is they may not hand over, but if it comes to an issue of survival, and that's where Prashant Kishore may play a role, that it's either you're gone or you come into some kind of an understanding here. They may play a ball at that juncture. I'll get back to first of all, Dr. Sen. I have no disagreement with what you said about the Congress DNA people. I also said that, and that's what is going to give her the critical mass. But I also do not see Mamata Banerjee really getting a sweep of the Hindi heartland, whether through small states or bigger states. So the card she will have to play in the whole game is maybe you'll find as you go forward this whole talk about why should we have a prime minister only from the Hindi speaking states or North India. And there have been before 2019 also there was this talk about the South configuration, that whether the Dravidian states and all of them can come together and form and dictate the terms. So you can have that sort of a configuration by which they can try and push Mamata. And then, as you're saying, it'll all depend on what is the momentum at that juncture, what is the strength at that point. Why I think 2000, people may not have to wait she will not wait till 2023 as much, is because by then, if let's say Congress does well in UP or in some other states, the whole equations might change. So she will have to up her ante. And also, Dr. Sen, I don't think she would either waste her resources in trying to claim a lot many seats in the South, or the Southern parties would allow her that. And whether we like it or not, in the South, I live there here in the South now. the Gandhis do have a brand equity here. The only other national party which has is the Gandhis. Okay, even when you're talking of BJP, and Vajpayee was known among the educated and the elite class, but other than that, there is BJP has got no recognizable face, and that's why through all these Pradhan Mantri schemes, etc., Modi's brand and things are being driven through here. So that is how I see things taking the form. But obviously, Advaita, Gandhis would not like to hand over. But that's the situation if they create. And this is all fluid, as you say, as Dipankar was saying, that if, let's say, NCP and others come on board, and because of that, some Pradesh Congress people start shifting this way, the G23 has been a damn squib. I keep on saying that, they have been absolutely a non-starter. So because also none of those people have got any kind, other than a few, but they like Manish Tiwari may be having a little bit of a base. Nobody has a national either a stature or even a popular base. So some of those people may come on board here. To only other question I will answer, you were asking about how was Mamata Banerjee as a person. I know before she was the chief minister, a very well-known journalist, Bengali journalist, I don't want to take his name, who was also very close to Pranab Mukherjee, asked him that, do you think she can manage being a chief minister? So Pranab Mukherjee had told him, this gentleman, whom I know very well, that don't worry, people grow in their positions. Today she might appear to be, just an opposition this thing. She will also learn and grow. Now, Mamata has grown and changed even as a chief minister, but not entirely. Certain personal traits don't change. Though you may say that even where Dipankar was saying about the Congress, Indira Gandhi, or people may say about Modi and Shah that they remain the supreme boss, but in Mamata's case is slightly more different. You see anybody of any standing who gets into that party, okay, I have seen Amit Mitra before the elections. Before he was made the minister, he had a very different sort of an equation with Mamata Banerjee when he was the FICCI chairman and he was rooting for her. But after Amit Mitra joined the TMC, became a minister, you see how what is his form? Means you can hardly ever see him. Initially, he was talking, but now you hardly hear him talk also. So Dipankar was mentioning about a Jahaz Sarkar or even Yashwant Sinha or anyone. You will not see them being very active because that's not the way Mamata really operates. You may have some people she may trust, but those are the people who will be very low profile or work behind the scenes. But she is that way. She is mercurial, and so nobody really can take a high profile position with her, even on a token basis around her. But how she will then relate to the other, coalition or alliance partners, that's where I think she will also learn. She will grow. Like I'm personally, on a slightly lighter note, you wouldn't be surprised that if she's been actually taking Hindi lessons in private, and you may hear her actually speak much better Hindi 1 year down the line than what she does today. She is the gritty, she is one of those person who works on herself to, she has come a long way from where she was a street fighter to being knocking on the doors of being a national leader. And she will constantly work on her image and progress that way.
I mean, she certainly has the media on her side because the kind of reign of terror that is ongoing in West Bengal post-poll violence, she's not been, taken over the coals in the way that she needs to be. And I don't see that even happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And Advaita, I will interrupt to say one more thing. Is one of the media, the media is very, very, as you know, is partial or selective in their reporting, not just about Mamata, about things happening, say, in other states. They will gloss over that bit. Second thing, which I'm surprised, is there is a lot of, I don't know, conscious, PR happening. People sitting in other states don't really know what is actually happening in West Bengal. A lot of people think that there has been a great deal of delivery, things are hunky-dory there. So that kind of a PR messaging is also happening to build her, persona. And so a lot of people sitting away from Calcutta. So she wants to really do a Modi on a Modi. Like they believe that Modi hyped up his Gujarat success to build a national image, and that's what they're trying to do there. But last point I'll make, Advaita, I am personally extremely impressed by how Abhishek Banerjee is shaping up. And I've seen him, and that gradual transition was before the assembly elections, and even now when you see him, he's talking well, he's aggressive, and I think he is turning out to be an asset for Mamata, unlike what Rahul Gandhi was for Sonia. I mean, you're rather indiscreet in saying so, but
No, I agree with you. Actually, I thought he came across well in that interaction he had with the media as well. Actually, I don't know about so much about well, but certainly better than what one had an impression of him, because one didn't really hear from him that often. But Professor,
you
now
see,
just
I'll interrupt you, Advaita. What you see Abhishek doing, Abhishek will now, in partnership or collaboration with Prashant Kishore, uh, put the building blocks in place across the country. And you'll find Mamata moving in there later, closer to the date. And that's where, as Dipanka was saying, maybe in 23 or so, if her going is good for her, that's when she'll move. But he's doing a good job with Prashant Kishore in trying to put the building blocks in place.
Uh, Professor, looks like we've all but written off the Congress. They may spin a surprise. They may come back stronger. They may hold off Mamta. Do you think that's possible? And what would they have to do to hold her
Okay.
off? Because I think it's an existential crisis for them,
Okay.
and it's quite likely that she could take over the Congress party and at least the cadre and organizations wherever she
So
can.
let's come back to the point that Sandip Ghose made, that she can't wait till 2023 because the Congress may do well in UP. At this point in time, that looks extremely unlikely. In UP, they have one or two seats. What could they do? If there's a surge for the Congress in UP, it means that they cut into the Samajwadi ports, whatever, etc. So the neither the Samajwadi party does well nor the Congress well, and the BJP comes back again. Okay, so it is extremely unlikely right now, and if you look at the opinion polls too, the Congress is not going to do well in UP. So among the states that's going to the polls, where they do well, hopefully Gujarat, where hopefully anti-incumbency may finally kick in. But again, we don't know, because the Gujarat, if you look at the Ahmedabad municipal polls, the AAP has moved in, and as a result of the division of votes, the BJP has come back very strongly in Gandhinagar. There's Karnataka, where polls will be due 1 year before that, by which time, of course, Mamta will have the time to make her moves. So Mamta has time. It's not as if she does not have time. She has time. The other thing is basically the Jekyll and Hyde personality. You see, Abhishek Banerjee has a particular personality before the media, but when it comes to Bengal, it's another personality altogether. And it is the free pass that the mainstream media, particularly the English media, giving Abhishek Banerjee, which enables them to cobble this particular image up. I would imagine, but that by which time the BJP would also have some strategy in place to debunk a lot of things. For example, you see, they've done very badly in the Bengal elections, but already I see, it's possible that only I see it, that you have Dr. Lahiri, the BJP MLA, who's an economist, who has started to debunk a lot of the figures that Amit Mitra used to give regarding economic growth in West Bengal. And he's doing it pretty well. Unfortunately, as I think Tathagato Rai described BJP in Bengal, there's a lot of BJP supporters in Bengal, but no organization. Nobody to amplify what Dr. Lahiri is saying to the lay public. But let us face it, the BJP, Amit Shah, etc., are not people to let grass grow under their feet. They will do certain things, important things, certain drastic things before long. They will do it. So far, Mamta was fighting this battle on her own turf with a media which was willing to overlook no whatever she did. But when she moves out, rest assured, the Hindi speaking media in the Hindi states or the regional media in the other states will probably not be as forgiving or as indulgent as West Bengal's media has been. The other thing, the South Indian states, it is true that the Gandhi family carries a lot of brand equity in these particular states. But then, this is something that has been declining. I mean, look at Andhra Pradesh. The Congress used to be a major party in both parts of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana as well as Andhra Pradesh. Where is the Congress? It is no longer in Andhra Pradesh. It is no longer in Telangana, but the BJP is now the power in waiting. We know the BJP is the power in waiting. In Karnataka, the Congress still exists. It's the power in waiting. In Kerala, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, their failure to come back this time is damning. And in Tamil Nadu, yes, the family has an image, but the family also knows that if it goes it alone, it can't do a thing. And therefore, Stalin's ability to manipulate or to influence will be considerable. Now, it is true that the G23 by and large has turned out to be a damn squib. But no, some leaders of the G23 in their states, small states, still can pull a lot of things. For example, Ghulam Nabi Azad is still quite powerful in Jammu and Kashmir. Anand Sharma is still quite powerful in Himachal. Not as powerful as he thinks he is, but he could do stuff. In the rest of the Hindi belt, no. But I am talking about a sequential game where, as I think we have all agreed, she basically takes over the smaller states, Pradesh Congress committee in the smaller states. Then somewhere down the line, the Jagan says, okay, I'm willing to support her. Pawar also gives her his blessings. And then you move on to the smaller Hindi belt states, and then you keep on going. And then, of course, the family says, okay, we will sit on a pedestal as we did from 1991 to 1996, perhaps take a more submissive role, and you basically lead the party. This, I think, is a likely scenario. It could happen. It could happen. Much, of course, will depend on whether Jagan and Sharad Pawar would actually give her their support. But I don't see any reason as to why they should not really.
I mean, Jagan is facing his own anti-incumbency, so we can't, take it for granted that, he's going to be in a position to do that. But I really think that the net, the Congress will still have more states under its control than Mamta can aspire to, even with, in the next year and a half, even with all this pull and push. But, for the last sort of 15 minutes of this show.
Yeah, but that's still, it's true now, but that may not be true till 2023. Right now, the Congress has more states and more MPs, but we are talking about a sequential takeover. And if she has wind behind her, and the Congress cadre is sufficiently demoralized. See, if they are not able to take Gujarat, if they are not able to do something in Karnataka in 2023, things will happen.
Yeah. Sandeep, in the last 15 minutes or so of the show, I want to know about what the BJP game plan can be leading up to 2024, when we're seeing this sort of realignment. And of course, I mean, this could also be post-Bengal victory, which only happened in April, frankly, and we're sitting in October. So maybe we are all also overestimating Mamta, and we're reading too much of the English media ourselves. But what do you think the BJP is thinking right now as they're watching this play out?
See, I would first of all and qualify what you're saying of over reading Mamta. At least I am reading Mamta not as a replacement for Modi, but in terms of what we are talking about being the opposition, the pivot of the opposition, or coming out as the as a numero uno among the opposition people. That's what all that I would say. And she would be playing to the thing that, okay, if they get BJP comes down to a certain number, and if the non-BJP opposition has, and what's the game? I'm not yet looking at her, let's not, at this moment, certainly as a replacement for Modi. Coming to BJP, I personally feel one is BJP, as you would notice, while all these noise, everything is happening, Modi is going about his agenda one by one, be it on the foreign policy, be it on domestic issues, be it on this infrastructure, everything which is going to happen. It is he is going, so they will focus on the delivery going forward. There will be also a simultaneous game happening, which will be beneath the surface or not really visible in terms of what is happening in each of these states. You know, the whether it's UP or what's happening in Rajasthan, and there, Congress may be actually facilitating a lot of stuff. When you are talking about Congress coming up with a higher number, just imagine a counter scenario. If there is a split in Chhattisgarh, if there is a split in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, in any case, Kamal Nath right now is in very low key with Jyotiraditya and other people coming in. That's gone. So Congress may not actually have, and again, go into Bihar. I don't think today Tejasvi is being very charitable towards Congress even there. And so even if a Nitish Kumar were to jump ship, what's going to happen out in that area? So Congress may or may not get that numbers. And going back to BJP's bigger challenge, I feel will be how they expand their southern reach right now. I don't think they have been particularly successful. Though in Andhra, Telangana, you might say they are there, Karnataka there, but Tamil Nadu, they're not there at all. Kerala, they're not there at all. And if Northeast, again, they mess up with the kind of stuff which is happening, Tripura, etc., that will be a bit of a worrying factor. So they need to get their act together, because one thing, although being definitely somebody who definitely admires Modi, and if not a BJP supporter, I see one problem is BJP doesn't get certain states. Why they went wrong in Bengal? Because they don't get Bengal. Similarly, they don't get Tamil Nadu. And just by your Delhi formulations, they will never be able to get these states. Northeast, they have done I think a sort of a pragmatic choice in Himanta, which was Sharma, but how much rope he gets, or if they try to, whatever internal dynamics that might affect. Whereas if you look at the opposition, what will a Jagan look for, either from BJP or for Mamata? He is not interested in becoming even a deputy prime minister and all. They will all look for a couple of meaty portfolios out there. If BJP comes, Jagan would like to look at that he is not being investigated or something's happening out there. And Stalin is right now, I feel, in a very, very stable situation, because after this victory, Tamil Nadu has always been this family-centric thing. Now, it'll be a long time before AIDMK can get its act together. And here BJP is not really. So therefore, Stalin will again, he's not, I don't think he'll be quite happy to get a couple of people like erstwhile Raja and Kanimozi in the central government, and he would be happy to rule this. So that's why. So BJP, I think you'll find that they will be working more towards, dismantling Congress, which some of it Congress themselves are doing. You'll see what is happening in Punjab. We'll all have to wait and see. Today I was reading Sidhu didn't even attend Channi's son's marriage. If that is the situation today, he stayed away from the marriage.
Wow.
So that's the kind of animosity you have.
Now, what if I twist this around and say that since it's an existential crisis for the Congress when it comes to Mamata, what if the BJP and Congress come together and try and I'm just asking. What are the odds of that? Anything can happen in politics. It just depends on how.
BJP and Congress won't happen. I think we'll digress a lot from that. But BJP and Congress is highly unlikely. You can have a Congress getting, but disintegrating and parts of that coming into BJP. That's entirely possible. But the original, forget the original Congress. I will say this whole the core DNA of the Nehru-Gandhi family. They were one sort of people, and sitting in Jammu, Dipankar would know right from the beginning. They had this for them. The Hindu Mahasabha, Jansangh, and BJP were the anathema. Even right now, if they have to choose their enemies, they will say anyone but RSN and BJP. So the vitriol which you see from Rahul Gandhi and all towards the RSS, that is extremely strong. So I don't think that's going to happen, Advaita. That's a very, very fast stretch, And that's why BJP also, but BJP talked about the Congress Mukt Bharat kind of thing. Do they ever say DMK Mukt, Tamil Nadu? Or for that matter, Sri Mukt, West Bengal? That's extremely clear, opposition. Yeah, Dipankar wants to come in.
You see, the BJP may defeat the Congress may defeat the BJP, but as long as they retain their mass basis, the BJP or the Congress may be out of power for an extended period of time, but there is no existential crisis there. You see, so two parties compete with one another, one party wins, the other party loses. The problem with the Congress in many states that they are no longer the party or the party waiting. They become the third party, then the fourth party, and then they basically just vanish out of sight. When that happens, then it's not even parts of the Congress organization joining BJP. It's basically parts of their voter base. Voter base completely disintegrates. One part join one party, other part starts voting for the BJP. That may happen. But the Congress and the BJP coming together will not make any sense for the BJP for a very simple reason. They're winning anyway. In the Hindi belt states, they're winning anyway. So even if the Congress does not join them, it doesn't really matter. Now the question is, if yes, taking over the Congress, buying over the MLAs, if it could help them in certain states, make up for that particular margin, one could think about robbing their MLAs. But as Sandip Ghose said, the DNAs of the two parties are extremely different. And even in the worst of times, the Congress has a certain vote share. And by the way, let's face this, Trinamool Congress is also Congress. The DNA is the same. As I keep on saying, go to a Trinamool office. Whose photographs will you see? Indira Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, and so on and so forth. Of course, Mamata is also, not Sonia Gandhi. That's okay. So that the DNA of this party is also that of the Congress. Now, what Mamata is trying to do is, again, as Sandip Ghose said, trying to get people together with the same DNA.
Yeah, the same DNA and all is good, but there will also be this situation, I think, and again, I'm just speculating, and I'm again going on that existential trip, because this is going to be existential for the Congress. I don't know if they still realize it, but unless they pull off some wins or some very strong performances, they're in deep trouble coming up. And Sandip, you want to say something?
No, I was just half in jest saying Congress has been in existential crisis for so long. If you now resolve the existential crisis, they may die of withdrawal symptoms. So better let them live with the existential crisis. At least under the Rahul Gandhi regime, that has become their way of life.
And it's like, even in a small state like my state in Uttarakhand, they don't have their act together. Forget complex
That's why AAP
states
is
like
taking over.
AAP is taking over in
AAP is
Uttarakhand.
taking over the Congress vote bank. Yeah. Look,
it's a small state. It's not even challenging like a UP is. They could have done. They can do more, but it's not happening.
In Bengal, the West Bengal Congress had become an extension of the left front. It is that which Mamata rebelled against, and what was an existential crisis, because the Congress had been out of power since 77, was in a sense resolved by Mamata, who basically broke away the bulk of the Congress, and 15 years later she comes back to power. So when you talk about existential crisis, which Sandip Ghose has pointed out, Congress has been one for a quite long time now. There are two ways of resolving it. One is the local strongman basically breaks out, forms his own Congress, and takes over the Congress structure totally. That is the Mamata and the Jagan model. You know, otherwise, some other regional party basically encroaches on its vote bank. The party in power encroaches on its vote bank. That is the UP model and the Bihar model, where respective segments of the votes have been taken over by the Samajwadi Party, the Bahujan Samaj Party, and the BJP, respectively. So now, uh, having seen this, I think the Pradesh Congress committees or the Congress workers, many of the people in the Congress, in many states where they aren't winning, somewhere down the line will have to start asking the questions, where do I go to? Now, by which time, if Mamata has given them an attractive option, then a jump to Mamata is conceivable. But let me just come to what Modi has been doing. I think, as Sandip Ghose pointed out, Modi has been going from plan to plan. He has not deviated from the script. He does not respond to any small reversal like Mamata does. You know, post 2019 general elections, Mamata went mad. She went mad, and and a lot of people had to discipline her basically into behaving more logically and more sensibly. You won't see Modi do that. You won't see Shah do that. They are going from plan to plan. Look, I think if by 2024 the economy starts firing all cylinders, you know, there'll be nothing to stop Modi and the BJP coming back to power. If the economy power, does all cylinders, it will come back to power. Now, as an additional thing, they're also trying to do water, electricity, and all that. Extremely important. But the jam moment to add to the vote share, that's been done.
But the
Right now,
arithmetic,
we have not had great growth for a long time. This is the time, I think, to get the economy firing on all cylinders, and they are trying their best to basically get it done. This, push on infrastructure, so many things that are being done is essentially to get the economy firing. If that happens, I think the BJP will not have anything to worry about. Of course, I mean, organizationally, things still have to be done. Something has to be done about the Bengal BJP. Something seriously has to be done about Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, etc. Serious has to be done. And they will attempt. I don't know what is the magic key that actually solves that particular problem. But in my opinion, it is now the economy. Get the economy firing on all cylinders, and I think much of BJP's problems and the nation's problems will be taken care of.
this has been recurring on our viewer chat, and they've been saying that, well, what has happened in West Bengal post polls? Uh, how is she going to gain acceptability in the Hindi belt, so to speak, based on the kind of violence that has been seen?
See, the
And they want,
violence.
and they also want to know why we, when we are discussing Mamta, are not bringing this up often enough.
Yeah, they've written that, but we can talk about it. We have kind of taken it as a given, because what you said earlier is the indulgence of the national media, and the local media will not talk about it at all for reasons everybody knows. Okay, you see, so how the major news is underplayed. I think it'll be politically incorrect for us to talk about it there. But the point is how much of this is getting communicated to the rest of the country. You have national media, even the Supreme Court seized of Lakhimpur Kheri, but who is really actually talking about West Bengal in the media or at a national or international level. So you have a Mamata Banerjee's MP writing op-eds in New York Times about rest of the country, but you don't have anybody. New York Times will never write something about what's happening in West Bengal. So that's a situation, and we'll also have to see how BJP plays on it. If TMC people rush to Lakhimpur Kheri, what were BJP national leaders doing when this pogrom was happening in West Bengal? I don't think they have also really played it up in that way. The other point, while diverting from there, even to us, Advaita, one point people don't pay attention to is the resource factor. Congress today is strapped of resources, and it's admittedly so. Whereas you find a lot of money with Trinamool. Trinamool has spent officially more than 150 crores in West Bengal election. That's officially quoted figure. They were the people who got the second highest electoral bonds after in 2019. Okay, that's and all these acquisitions which you talk of, whether it's the Northeast or Goa, I don't think they come just for love and rasgullas. But there is much more to it. So there is obviously they have a lot of people who are also backing them at the moment, and that gives them a strength. And the last point is, other than Rahul Gandhi, who has the eternal youth kind of a feeling because his party, everybody calls him a youth leader. Everybody else realizes that they are getting quite close to past sell-by dates. Okay, and so it's a Sharad Pawar or anybody. So a lot of these people are actually seeing 2024 as their last shot. Okay, if they really don't do that, and even the youngsters, if Akhilesh or even Tejusri and other people don't really make a mark there, they would have missed the bus for a long time. So when you find people like Jyotiraditya and others switching to BJP, it's partly due to that also. You cannot tell somebody like in a corporate situation, okay, we'll make you CEO after 10 years, when today after 45 nobody becomes a CEO any longer. So that's also will be a driving force for people.
But Udit Raj had a comment to make about the Air India sale, and he says now that the Air India is gone, what kind of ministry does Jyotiraditya Scindia have?
That's
So
a totally ridiculous. I comment on that. In fact, the problem of Air India was because the ministry was trying to run an airline. Okay. So you don't become that's what Jyotiraditya's father did. I don't want to get to say that how he ran Air India or how he ran down Air India. That was the problem. Whereas the civil aviation minister has a lot more to do in terms of increasing the connectivity, increasing the whole, oversight, the safety and the regulation. And even if you look at in terms of power or what kind of resources he will be dealing with, setting up 50 new airports is going to be much more, I think, rewarding, quote unquote, than setting up three new large airports or running Air India.
It's not Udit Raj's comment on Air India. I mean, Udit Raj is basically not known to comment on policy questions. But what saddens me is tweets by Jairam Ramesh, okay, so Tata has done the thing, Adani, airports, etc. What a fall. I remember in the early 2000s, such a votary for reform. And now look, I mean, he's basically reduced himself to a family troll. This is in a sense is a symptom of the massive crisis that the Congress in, completely bereft of ideas, so negative that it's repulsive to look at it even as an organization. And the once such talented and bright people who have joined this particular party, in a sense, reflect this negativity, and the sight is not pleasant to look at. The other point, does Mamata, take over the country? I think right now we are talking about Mamata trying to take over the Congress and become the principal opposition leader. Taking over the country is some time away. She fought a battle on her turf, a turf she knows better than the BJP. She's now coming out to fight on somebody else's turf. That will be somewhat more difficult than she realizes it will be. Prashant Kishore has been very good at winning battles where the circumstance is his. For Bihar, the moment you added Nitish Kumar's votes and Lalu's votes, they were obviously much more than the BJP. And that the fact that they won, he became a whiz kid. When he was really tested in UP 2017, where did all that go? Where did all that go? Look, this person is very good at making himself discussed. He is now doing it through Mamata. He's now doing it through Mamata. We will test him. Let him come out of Bengal. Let them come out of Bengal. We'll find out. कौन कितने पानी में है.
Why do we keep saying that the BJP didn't do well? I think they did really well in West Bengal. They didn't win, but they catapulted themselves number 2. They've decimated
the assembly segments in the Lok Sabha was 128. They won 128 assembly segments. The Trinamool won 158. Okay, they won less. You see, I did not think they would do well in metropolitan Calcutta, the Calcutta presidency area. I didn't think they would do well in Malda, Murshidabad, those particular areas for particular good reasons. But in the areas where I expected them to do well, you see, they did not. Central, South, etc. Now, the vote share between the BJP and the Congress in these areas was, by the way, not much. Overall vote share, quite a lot. In this case, the vote share in these crucial areas were about 2%. But the fact is that out of their eagerness to gain power, they got in so many unsavory elements from the Trinamool Congress that Mamata was left looking far cleaner after they had got rid of trash, and the BJP came out as a divided house in the sense that many of their old cadre, committed workers decided not to basically spend their time and effort in pushing. So what happened is BJP's vote share came down in 2000 and from 2019 a little above 40% to little above 37%. And the Congress's vote share went up, TMC's vote share went up considerably because, of course, the Congress and the CPM vote share also came to be added to the TMC. So, but the crucial part is what happened in Central and South Bengal, where the BJP was supposed to do far better. If that did not happen, it did not happen because, I will blame the local BJP for it. Because they were unable to do anything, people have to be deputed from outside. And when you come in from outside and you try to basically take over the campaign at a short period of time, you tend to make mistakes. See, you have to grow organically. BJP's popularity in West Bengal has grown astronomically, far too fast for the organization to catch up. And that has been a serious problem. And of course, there have been some.
That is also, that means there is also potential if their popularity outstrips their
there is also that element of getting Bengal. Somebody who knows the flavor of Bengal. So you want to make the jump between the party in waiting to the party in governance. You have to get that state so that floating votes can actually come over to you, number one. Number two, this entire image that is built up in the press, the local intelligentsia media, that also has to be neutralized, and that is part of getting it. And so far, they haven't got it.
Advaita, my disappointment, I agree with you, BJP, just if you were to look at the election results, you might say they were a victim of their own hype, and the results per se were not bad. Okay, what they got in terms of votes share or in terms of number of seats, as Dipankar says, the margins were very narrow in some places. But where the BJP act really, went into a meltdown is post-election, and that shows that how they built the whole thing on it was on cards or a castle of sand. And now, as I say, the castle has disappeared. Now you're getting into a hole. That's the kind of thing, and that's where one is not getting it. But I am very surprised somebody like Kailash Vijayvargiya, who camped there for more than 4 years, didn't get the pulse of things, or they made this. They are very seasoned politicians. Where did they go so terribly wrong in their selection of people? That is what unnerves us, and therefore all the gains of 2019, I think, have now been dissipated, and to regain that in 2024 also will be a tall order to my mind.
Also, I mean, the Mukul Roy situation, I mean, there are all sorts of conspiracy theories doing the rounds. His entry and then his exit. all seemed very coordinated. But anyway, that's really all we have to discuss today. We've gone over time. This has been an exceedingly informative conversation. We've had an exceptionally engaged audience. It's great to see that people are actually asking questions, which leads me to the fact that maybe one day we just need to do like a Q&A with the audience, because some really good, interesting questions coming in from there, and we obviously can't get to all of them. But Sandeep, I hope you enjoyed the Sunday Club. I hope you'll come back.
Thoroughly. Thanks so much for calling me.
You got more.
To come in as a substitute player because your lead player
No. Because those two have been benched. They've been benched for bad behavior on social media. But every once in a while, I mean, we have to have like in-depth conversations, right? No, but I mean, I'd love to have you back on again. In fact, we're definitely going to invite. You're definitely not a replacement. I think Bengal is something that we needed to discuss with people like you, because you know it so well, and it's been exceedingly informative. We haven't gone wrong with our choice. And Professor, of course, thank you for joining us again. I hope you enjoyed yourself also. Professor's getting very fussy now. He sort of picks the shows he wants to come on, and let's not do more of this,
Absolutely
let's
not.
not do more of
talking
that.
of celebrities,
Absolutely not. She kept us waiting for a particular show and then she cancelled it at the last moment. All because of a tweet. I had supported Abhijit Iyer Mitra on a particular issue and she was
No,
furious.
that's
And
not
then she says, okay,
that's not true.
we'll teach
But
the Bengali a lesson, I mean, there it was. We waited and waited,
Good. It was lovely. It was a very, very refreshing and different, stimulating conversation. Thank you so
thank
much.
you. No, and Professor, we have to discuss Kashmir also. And Sandeep, of
Oh,
course,
definitely.
please,
Yeah.
you're welcome. Professor, you're in Jammu, and I think in the next 2 or 3 days we must talk about this, because it's quite alarming, and one doesn't know where it's headed at this present time. So
What's happened is serious. This alarming thing, one has to be careful not to blow these things out of proportion. Alarming, definitely. I mean, worrying, alarming is, but we'll talk about this later.
We'll leave that for another discussion.
Yeah, for
yeah,
another.
we'll talk about that another. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. Please like, share, subscribe the channel, hit reminders so that you know when we're on. I've also posted an interview with Adrian M. Levy, who was the author of Spy Stories, The Secret Lives of ISI and RAW. It's an exceptional book. This is the author who's written The Siege along with Catherine Scott. They wrote Meadows. These are books, of course, that I've read, deeply researched their books are. And this was quite tricky terrain. And he has some excellent observations to make about the ISI raw face-offs that we've seen through the history of their formation, as well as what the present geopolitics of the area means for all of us, really. What it means for our safety, for our future, for the possibilities of cataclysmic wars. So do watch that interview, and that's part of the new show called Page Turners, where we will try and get you interesting books, interesting writers, and bring a little more variety to the conversations we're having on the panel, so that on the channel rather, so that we don't only talk about politics. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and we will see you very soon.